What we're trying to do in DB is, again, very, very ground up innovation, which we're trying to tell very, very simple story. The simple story is, if you have 14,000 people working in the firm, everybody can become an entrepreneur and everybody can act like an entrepreneur and should behave like an entrepreneur. One of the initiatives which we triggered was Resume the Resume, which is basically means that I think we just encourage women employees who are out of the job for some time, but they can come. We put an initiative, we train them, give all kinds of support which is required and get them integrated into stuff. If you look at the holistic India, if you see everywhere, there's so many problems. I always look at it in a way that if you have a problem, I think it is a potential opportunity for somebody to create something new and a potential startup. If you work in the best interest of the place you work, maybe it is not necessary at that point in time in the best interest of you and your team, but I think it's the right way to do it.
Dilip, I've known you for many years, and from my vantage point, I have known you, in your earlier roles, and the impact and the engagement and the passion you brought in building, in bringing both the world, the enterprise world, the tech world, and the startup world together. And I have known you as genuinely someone who's encouraged startups. You were with SAP Labs, you were, and the kind of impact that you were creating. And now today I'm meeting you in this new role as the global CIO for Deutsche Bank and the MD and CEO for India. Let's begin with, what does this new role entail and what are you here? What is the new impact spectrum that you're looking at here?
Okay, again, thank you, Shradha, and I think it is always a pleasure to talk to you. I think from a role point of view, I think if you look at the financial industry, I think that is undergoing a massive, massive change. And of course, tech is going to be a big enabler or a disruptor in this whole financial industry. And I think one of the things which excites me the most is how the new financial service or the industry will look like in future and how can tech play that portion in it. And that's the reason what excited me to come to DB, because you've always built products for a lot of clients, but you never looked at it from the side of somebody who is using and implementing it and what does the scale and the size it takes. So it's very interesting for me with the banking and the sector, because I've never done banking in the past, but it gives you that opportunity to transform, look at the things what are there today, and how can tech enable and help you to transform as you move into the future. My role, personally, I think I have, as you rightly said, there are largely two areas. One is, of course, I take care of the global CIO for corporate functions, which is, of course, a large role in terms of having a larger impact for the overall DB. And the second role being, of course, India being such an integral part in all this. We have close to 14,000 people in India.
Wow.
Which is largely almost like 20% of DB workforce. And how do you get this whole team to be also rightly integrated into the overall Deutsche Bank world and transform with creating new products and the services for our clients?
Interesting. And thanks for sharing this number. I didn't know that it's 14,000 people working here in India.
That's true.
Wow. So DB is also creating massive jobs here in the country.
That is also true. I think if you look at in the last couple of years, you've added close to 30% of the people and you still continue to hire a lot of people. And I think it's just generic for all large banks and industries. And I think DB is not so different from the stuff. But I think from a strategy point of view, we have boiled this down to few technology center locations globally. India being one part of it. That's another role which I had. Actually, I had the Global Technology Center globally for DB. And India is the front and the center of the strategy. And I think, as I rightly said, in the last a couple of years, we have just almost added 30-35% of the people working on this core technology, and it of course creates a lot of job opportunities in India.
Yeah. And very important at this point of time in our country. Dilip, I want to ask you, when you have this massive workforce, tech force, and as DB, it's an iconic brand. It's a large, well-known brand globally. How do you ensure that the sense and the culture of innovation, the sense, the culture of agility is there? Because the tech world is, if I may say so, is disintegrating and rebuilding itself so fast. Cycles, yeah.
So Shradha, I think again completely right. I think the two areas, and I think you rightly touched upon the two areas. One is on the agile front, and the second thing is innovations front. And I think that is again the transformations that will happen as a part of the journey. I'll tell you how we're trying to do. On an agile front, what we're trying to do is how do you get the teams from the business as well as tech and all the supporting function, in this case ops or UI or any of the supporting infrastructure functions, to be an integral part of the solution you try to create. Because what is happening outside is completely different. See, if you look at in the past, people used to be very, very happy when somebody used to provide a solution. Okay, now the world completely moves towards an outcome base. So your client are not looking for the products or the solutions. They actually look for the really outcome. What is the outcome it means?
Yeah.
And when you are on a toast of the outcome, which is basically changing every day, and that's where your business requirements and the tech requirements needs to be very, very tightly integrated. So I think that as one of the key initiatives in the last couple of years has been, how do you move this bank into completely agile mode, which basically means cater to the customer requirement, working in an agile mode across all areas, including tech, business, and including the ops part. So I think that is the fundamental change, because we want to just create value to the clients very, very fast, and not just like in the past, the waterfall model which used to have. Second, on the innovation front, I think you know that we still operate into a very largely regulated entity, which large amount of regulations and all those things. But I think it's also important that, like what you said on the culture front, I think typically what used to happen is the innovations always used to feel that the innovation comes from the top and there are people driving the topic and all those things. But what we're trying to do in DB is again very, very ground up innovation, which we're trying to tell very, very simple story. The simple story is, if you have 14,000 people working in the firm, everybody can become an entrepreneur and everybody can act like an entrepreneur and should behave like an entrepreneur. And what we're trying to do is very simple. We just want to make sure that we give an environment to them. We give the platform to them. We just say, okay, if I'm X, I'm Dilip and I want to have an idea or something, I just be able to just put this idea in a certain tools or a certain platform, and the like-minded people can come and work towards solving those ideas and the solutions. I think I'm fine if some of these ideas will not go through, but you do a lot of this ground-up innovations, focus on the culture, and building this right enough. And at some point in time, it will start to see that some of things will go into the product. And maybe sometimes when you have these partnerships with large-scale companies like Google and all those things, you can actually start to create completely new product and the service which is not there existing today. So I think we're doing both as a part of the overall transformation journey in DB.
Dilip, when you say this, it also, on the surface, of course, today you're dealing with consumers and people at the forefront who are expecting that experience, who are expecting that kind of an outcome, which is changing every day. So what it means is that there is an intense pressure to also not just innovate, but to, be at the top of your game. And it's not, I'm just saying it's true for all the banks, all the entities and all the people in the fintech space. How do you ensure that the people working with you embody that, right? Like embody and live to that?
I think it's a very good question. On the other side, I've never come across anybody who actually doesn't want to be creative or innovative. He would like that stuff. It's just always a question of how much as a firm or an org you create that environment for them. So I think it's rather opposite. I think it's if you give them environment, you will really unleash them. And I can tell you that you start to create completely different outcomes. And this links also to, I always link diversity story also to the story. Because look at a scenario. Diversity, I think people talk even in a generic way. I linked it to innovations and outcome. Because I feel when you have a table and you have 10 people sitting, and if you have 10 different diverse views, I'm not even touching who these people are, but it's just 10 different diverse views. It can come from various different cultures, it can come from different countries, it can come from various generations, it can come from a gender. If you just put them the view, I can guarantee it and tell you that you will come to a solution or at least a discussion which is different from a one-sided discussion that you have. So I think I'd rather be opposite. I think if our job is to create environment for people, where people can be creative, people have the platform where they can raise their views and opinions and be creative, and just let it evolve. I know it's a very tough journey. I know that we come from a very large, old, let's say, history and all those things, and it is not that easy to change. But I think in today's environment, everybody likes it, everybody wants to be creative, and everybody wants to be a part of the success what you create. So it is a longer journey, but I think it's the right way to do it rather than always doing it on the top. I think it's just right to go and build that culture in a simple. I know it is very easy when you're building with 100 and 200 people, but I know it becomes more difficult when you're with multiple countries and multiple geographies. But I still feel it is a hard way, but it's the right way.
But I just have to call this out. This is very encouraging to hear as a leader talking about a table which is diverse and diverse in true sense, in real sense. And I'm sure this conversation would ring true to people across the world, because we need in every field, and especially in tech, more diversity. And that brings me to the, maybe a very straight-jacketed way also of looking at diversity, getting women on the table. Do you have any focus? Do you have any special lens to look at getting more women in the workforce? And if you can tell us about in this 14,000 workforce that you have in India, if there is an emphasis on.
So the one thing is, I think overall, if you look at 14,000 people that we have, roughly we are 40% women in the workforce. And this we try to do it even from the very base. So I think it all starts from what level and how we are hiring at the first step.
No, but that's brilliant. It's 40%.
Yes, 40%.
Wow.
But we are still not happy. So I'll tell you where we are not. I'll tell you where we can be better even. So it starts from the college hiring or the lateral hiring you do, and we try to put that number on the table. We really put an effort to make sure that we get the diverse workforce, and specifically the women, from the very, very beginning. And then important thing is, as you go on the journey upwards, you need to put certain programs to make sure that you don't lose the people in between this. Because I think generally what you've seen is there is a lot of thing which happens in 3 to 8 years of the journey for whatever reasons. I mean, because of the life of generally a woman is more complex than men. And it has a lot of complexity which comes, and we need to support this as an organization very, very clearly. And so I think right sets of development plans, right sets of mentoring for the people who have done this in the past, the policies around how do you encourage them. I mean, one of the initiatives which we triggered was Resume the Resume, which is basically means that I think we just encourage people or the women employees who are out of the job for some time, but they can come. I mean, I know that they will not be ready for the jobs, but we put an initiative to make sure that we train them, give all kinds of support which is required, and get them integrated into stuff. The same applies with hiring women who are not tech, getting them in, training them on the people who are interested in learning on the tech, and making them learn on the tech if they are having an interest, and then move in the right direction. So I think it takes a little bit of an effort, but I think it's possible in multiple. So it's all about mentoring. It's all about how do you get them integrated, the policies and the process that you require, and all those things. One of the areas we can still do better is I would still like to see more and more at a senior leadership level, more and more women. And I think that's a work in progress. But I think if you do your basic rights, I think we will get there.
Yeah. This is very encouraging. And I'm again saying that you have 40% of women in the workforce. And there is a conscious effort to get more women in India also? Is it a global thing or specific?
This is specifically what I talk is India. But we try to do it globally as well in a similar way. But I think the number which I talked was India specific.
Oh, this is, I think this is for everyone who's listening to this to know, because we need this happening across all enterprises. Dilip, that brings me to the question of, and again, I said that in your last role, I had seen the role that you were playing among the different things and the impact that you were creating is the engagement that you had with startups and the encouragement that you were providing through, through the position and the role that you were in. Are you doing something similar here now?
I think very similar.
Oh.
And I'll tell you I think how I look at and how we look at in DB as a startup is, I think I actually feel it is, a lot of people talk about this as whether startups are going to disrupt the banking side or vice versa and all those discussions. I actually feel completely different. I feel it is a massive collaborative opportunities. And I think I look at Deutsche Bank in a very simple way. I think if the bank like Deutsche needs to be successful, they need to forge a very strong partnership with all of them. It got to do with large tech companies. It got to do with even with the startups and the young companies which are coming in financial sector.
Yeah.
And I think, and there is a clear value prop on this. I think it is nothing to do with, I think what startup brings on the table is they are young, they're energetic, they want to solve new age problems or in a faster basis. They can easily disrupt some of the stuff which are existing. On the other side, a bank like DB, I mean, what they can bring on the table with collaboration is very simple. I can leverage the startups, but I can also help the startups in terms of the global reach, in terms of how do you scale, which is the learning which I had from my past role. I think all the startup really struggle. They disrupt the model, but how do you help them scale? So I think it's all about getting the right expert on building the scalability, building large global reach. And I think don't forget one topic in financial and banking sector is the regulations. I mean, this they can help you in terms of getting even more accessible. So I feel this is actually it's a massive opportunity on both front. One is the startup bringing those new things and the large bank helping them. So I think it is a large and a collaborative opportunity which we see. We actually, I don't know if you know, I mean, we also have a particular vehicle where we also fund and collaborate with the startups, which is, we have the CVC as a group where we rightly try to identify right fintech startups where we can also invest and also leverage them into our environment for work. So I think it is happening on both fronts, but I feel it is a massive opportunities. One of the areas that we are still looking, and we will explore this in much more detail, is even getting them much more closer to our employees. So it's not just about having those partnership at a senior level, because I talked about innovations and I talked about the ground up innovations. I just want to also give a little bit of an access where startup have an access on both front. We're really leveraging even the experts from Deutsche and vice versa, and they can also learn on that aspect. And we're trying to figure this out, what is the right model to work in a regulated environment. Wow. But I think that's the same thing what you're trying to do with the startup and DB.
When you were talking about the regulated environment, we recently had our event, and the Honorable Finance Minister was there at TechSparks, and she spoke very encouragingly to this hall full of startups who were quite encouraged by whatever she was saying. But the most important thing which I picked up, and I want to talk to you about this, is that she said that if India, if we are innovating, and in fintech we've done so much, but she said that we need to see a lot more frugal innovation and technology at scale, where if we have 1.4 billion people, then how does the fintech or how does the solution that we build reaches everyone? And I want to get your thoughts on this, because I also know that you are a supporter of innovation, right? And then now you are in the fintech You come from tech world and you are in the fintech world. How do you see, and particularly if you could say innovation, frugal innovation mindset for 1.4 billion people, what would you say are some of the things that startups, builders, people, all of us need to consider to make this happen?
I think what is completely right is, I mean, this country is 1.3, 1.4 billion population. There is an opportunity to go very deep into the adoptions of various financial services products. And that's why I always tell this. I think in the end, it is, I mean, I don't think there is a lack of creativity in the innovation which is coming. I don't think that is the case. I think if you look at the number of founders who are coming and the solution which they're trying to create and all those things, I think where they require help is how do you, again, as I said to you, I mean, you require help. Who can help them, mentor them, and with a large let's say, an environment where you can take it to the mass. And I think that's where large organizations or a large, in this case, if it is fintech or the banks, can play a larger role, along with the technology provider as well. I think in some of these cases, large technology companies can also be a huge beneficial thing out of it. So I feel that if there is a model in which there is a right kind of collaborations which can happen between the startups, the corporates, because the corporate brings that scalability and that reach in the right way, and leveraging even the big companies, because I think it becomes more difficult for young startups. That's why I feel that the opportunity is immense.
Dilip, but it's very interesting that you understand the tech. You're very trifecta of understanding the tech. You understand the startups because you have angel invested or supported startups, and now you're you're in the financial space, if I may say so. So bringing all the three effectively together to create scale.
I think that is the only way to work out. And we just need to get away from the mindset that this is going to disrupt and all those things. I think there is enough space for everybody. And we don't need to think. I think you would rather find a way to have a solutions. It can be any solution. But as I said to you, I mean, if you get these people and work and collaborate, again, it is the same thing. Put people on the table. If you come on the different people on the table, not one-sided way, you will get a better solutions, which is the larger solutions in the best interest of everyone and trying to solve.
And if I had to ask you in the last 10 years, if you had to tell everyone watching from your lens, what makes you very optimist about India right now and moving forward? And I'm asking you this also because, abhi funding winter hai, it is tough, right? Like overall it's tough, the environment is tough, and especially for startups in the last 6-8 months, it's not been easy.
I know the situations, what you are in. It's very difficult for me to comment on anything specific, but I can tell you a few things which are works rightly in favor of India is, I mean, you look at just the size, which is the scale. You look at the talent which is available. You look at the opportunity which it brings. And I always use one word. I mean, when I was even going through the toll, right? My son always sometimes asks also, I mean, why do you need to wait here? And I think it solves the problem now with automated, and why do you need to wait here and all those things. I always tell him that I think we need to pay this stuff. And I said, why can't we solve this? So I think in India, it is, if you look at the holistic India, if you see everywhere, there's so many problems. And I always look at it in a way that if you have a problem, I think it is a potential opportunity for somebody to create something new and a potential startup. And that's the potentials. I don't think anybody on earth has this with so many of the issues and the challenges. I mean, practically, look at on the ground, and then you feel there's so much of opportunity. What I mean is there's so much of opportunity which are there. What needs to be very, very carefully, like what you said, is when you go through the startup journey for a very long period of time, you will always have this 1, 2, 3 cycles where you have a dip. And that's where you need to be, whether you call funding or winter or whatever you call. But I think it's just that those companies which are very, very robust in terms of, and I always look at it from a client view, if your clients are with you, generally, the success normally happens. You always will come across sometime tough markets and tough things, but you always pass through this. I think sometimes it's good to have those. It just, in a certain way, also cleans up the business models and clarify a lot of things you want to do. You focus on the right things, and just over a period of time you evolve. I'm very, very optimistic on the whole thing, what is happening. But I think it's just that is a phase you need to go through. And it helps you to focus and prioritize on some things and clean up something and just move forward on the stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very, very well said. Uh, Dilip, I have to ask you, if you had to tell all the young people and everyone listening to you right now, watching you right now, what are one or two things from your journey as a leader? Today, you're a global CIO. You've been in top positions, leadership positions. What are one or two things that you've done as a professional, as a leader, if I may, you, for the lack of better word, done right to live the journey that you're living, and to create the impact that you're creating? What are one or two things that you've done which we could pick up from?
I think you will say cliched, but I think I will tell you that so I come from a background where everybody is somehow into business. That's the background you come from. And what is taught there is always only two things. It's all about trust and loyalty. And when you say really loyalty, it's actually putting yourself more than the firm. I mean, you should actually rather putting firm on the top, and it's not always about you. So that's what been always been taught. It's all about what is the top thing. So I always feel that if you can just imbibe one thing, which is you put, whether you are an entrepreneur, it's very easy when you're building because then you're doing on your own. But when you even work for a larger company, just put that topic on the agenda first. For example, if I'm now working with DB, I think for me more important is what is the right success for Deutsche Bank, and then my success comes in, because I know if Deutsche Bank is successful, you comes in. So I think for me more important is you go beyond. It is loyalty and the trust, and the loyalty needs to come to the brand which you work with or the company which you work with. It's extremely important. And that leads to the second question, which is, if you're thinking like this, you need to, whether you are running a small team or a department or a large department or a large firm, I think if you need to act like an entrepreneur, you just think it is like your own and the mindset, and you just think like your own. If there is something needs to be picked up and nobody's picking it up, you pick it yourself because it is your own firm. And don't worry about the results. I think results will come automatically. So my thing is, the loyalty and trust is extremely critical. But I think whatever you do, and whatever role you do, however you do, just think on from just pure entrepreneurial mindset, which is just, it is my own.
Yeah.
I would like to solve this in the best possible way, and trying to do the best for the firm. I think that is what has helped me. And I am telling you, generally, people might feel that people notice or doesn't notice. Everybody notices it. And it becomes very, very visible.
I can see the passion with which you are saying this. We are at the end of the year, and it's such a good reminder. It's more of a philosophy of living life, right? Like what you're saying is that put the firm, the organization, or where you're working first, and optimize best for the firm. And then everything falls in place. Yeah. Because then you conduct yourself every day, every moment in, I think somewhere, I don't know if it's an India phenomenon or it's a global phenomenon. I think when you work in companies, there is generally, it could be in a startup or in a large enterprise, there is this mindset where the employee mindset comes in. But saying that don't have the employee mindset, have the entrepreneur mindset.
I think I'm only saying that you need to just work in the best interest of the place you work with. It can be your own firm. It can be the firm which you work with. It has to be the top one. Yeah. Because I think otherwise, I'll tell you what happens. Otherwise, you prioritize something else which the firm doesn't require. That's the problem which comes in. And then you go in a completely different direction. So I think I always feel that if you work in the best interest of the place you work, maybe it is not necessary at that point in time in the best interest of you and your team, but I think it's the right way to do it.
Dilip, we are, as I said, in December. 2022 is coming to an end. If I had to ask you one personal goal and one professional goal that you want to achieve in the coming year, what would that be?
Personal goal, I think it has not changed for me. It is nothing to do with 23. For me, as I said to you, respect is very, very important. I just want to be not about global. I don't care about large and in being news and media and all those things. I think my friends and the families, if they tell me Dilip is a good person and a respectful person, I'm good with the stuff. So I only look for that respect.
I remember you saying that.
I always will tell this, and it is not changed. And it will not change, because for me, that is the most important aspect. Professionally, I would really like that DB really, because we started a journey when I'm here in Deutsche Bank for 3 years. I would really like that the transformations we are undergoing, we just try to go and really complete that transformation and really be the front runner and really shape the financial service industry, not just for the bank, not just for DB. So I think that's the view and the aspirations. That's why we went into the journey of trying to solve problems, not just for the bank. And hopefully, I mean, we will be the front runners and the front leads for this stuff, but I really want to that it becomes a role model for the whole financial service industry.
You know, and I have to put my favorite question here before we end. Now that you are in financial services and industry, what has money meant to you?
I think it is, personally for me, I think it's just you require minimum things to live your life. See, I'm a very, very simple person in the sense of I'm happy with if I get dal roti and the basic stuff. So for me, I think with God's grace, we are one of the few lucky ones to have that access. And for me, it is just meeting those necessities, and then rest all you can help and contribute in whatever way to the society.
Wow. Wow, thank you. You know, very very inspiring, and a lot to take from this conversation. Thank you so much, Dilip, and all the very best.
Thank you very much for coming. And it was a nice conversation after so long time.